Welcome to the Tech Story Podcast, a place where we interview interesting people in tech. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Rama on the show. Ash is the VP of People at MentionMe, a MarTech company which helps brands acquire more customers through referrals. Thank you very much, Ash, for being on the show.
Pleasure for having me.
Introduce yourself and share a bit of background.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Ash and I'm a VP People at MentionMe at the moment. And my background's quite varied. It's typical in some ways, and then in other ways it was a bit of a mess. But it's obviously turned out okay, so not too bad. But my career started out in a pretty typical way for most people, or some people, which is after uni, not really quite sure what to do. So I got into a sales role, and I really enjoyed sales, and that was sort of property sales and recruitment and tech sales. And tech sales is where I found the tech space, and instantly loved it. And then I was, enjoying the sales world, but quite quickly, the passion came away from it. And I was thinking, I've got to find something else here. Do I need to sell something else or maybe move into management? Or I wasn't quite sure. And came across a sales training opportunity at the company I was at, Reach Local at the time. And so I took the sales training opportunity and had this very, very quick realization that I really loved helping other people to achieve. And I really loved helping people to unlock potential that they wanted to unlock. And that led to leadership development and coaching. And I was very used to working in the commercial space, but then one day woke up and I was in the people space, and it was a really happy accident. And that's just where my work in the people space has sort of expanded and grown from there. And here we are in VP People at MentionMe. Yeah,
that's a really fascinating story, and that desire to help people grow. Did that also then lead you to hypnotherapy and becoming a professional therapist?
Yeah, that was an interesting one actually. So sales training actually led me into that in a bit of an odd way. So as a sales trainer, I got really interested in the psychology of selling, which was then led down the road of sort of the psychology of decision making, and how people think and what motivates them and that kind of thing. So I started studying psychology, outside of work, and then that led me down the road of psychotherapy to be able to help people and to sort of add more to my coaching toolbox. And that then led to hypnotherapy as an alternative way to help people overcome obstacles. And so one thing led to another, and all of that now just sort of sits in my sort of coaching toolbox.
Yeah, that's great. And in regards to the obstacles, I guess there's sort of mental barriers that salespeople or anyone would encounter. What are those sort of the key mental barriers that you've identified and that you sort of can help?
Yeah, really, that's a really, really interesting question actually, because the mental barriers are, because they're mental, they're invisible. And so many of them are talked about, as in, the pressure we put on ourselves and the work from the office, work from home balance, and, in more recent times. And then there's that pressure to always be progressing in your career and that pressure to earn more money. And there's all of those things there that are talked about. But a lot of the time, they really weigh on people. And while they're striving for something, the thing they're striving for is sometimes also holding them back. And that can make for really interesting coaching conversations and also psychotherapy conversations to help people to realize that the things that they're striving for might also be blocking them and blocking their potential in one way or another. And so, those are the sort of mental barriers that I find myself talking to people about quite a lot and experience myself as well.
I mean, now you've said it, it makes sense. And, I think I'm a founder and obviously try to, create a lot of success for the company, our team and investors, but sometimes those goals can create pressure. And but on the other hand, the investors and I guess the general consensus is you need to be ambitious, because otherwise you won't even hit, and you always hit at maybe 10% of what you aim for. So you've got to have those big goals.
And true.
That's a challenge that I, find myself, fight a little bit.
As a founder, it's interesting you say that. So I've spoken to a couple of founders who, when I sort of talked to them about this idea of the pressure that comes from comparing yourself to others, I was quite surprised that the founders were the first people who say I experience that constantly. And interestingly, some of that pressure comes from the board or investors who reference other companies who are doing things in certain ways, which can sometimes put this unintentional pressure to do things that way as well. And then it becomes a comparison, and maybe I'm not good enough. And it's surprising how often that came up with founders.
Yeah. I can definitely relate.
Yeah.
And since being in the world of people and now at Mention Me, what's been your favorite moment so far?
That's a big question. I think my favorite moment at Mention Me has been quite a long moment last year, let's say, because we grew quite significantly. And one of the things I was really ambitious about was growing in a diverse way. A lot of the time, especially pre-COVID, a lot of the time diversity would be sacrificed for scale, and that was excused, and that was okay at the time, or okay for some at the time. And I was determined to scale in a diverse way, and it meant over-indexing on how we attract diverse talent. So I'm really, really proud of the way we scaled and grew our diversity in the right way, and have retained a really diverse workforce, and it's paid dividends in all sorts of ways. And obviously, diverse thinking is the best outcome you can have there. And one of the most interesting things in that was when we looked at, if we're going to hire in a diverse way, what is it we have to analyze up front and understand to get to know what else we need to do? And one of the realizations was, there's obviously a heavy reliance on some of the bigger job boards out there for candidate applications whenever you post a job. And they have really impressive numbers of applications that can come your way and really impressive visibility figures. But what many of them were unable to answer was how diverse is the pool of people that see your ads. And a lot of the time they were either unable to answer that question, or the answer was really vague. So it almost told us by definition some of the biggest places to advertise and the most popular places to advertise were the reasons why diversity was so low. So we then decided to go as niche as we could in the places we advertised advertised our open roles. And that's where we started seeing some really impressive results in diversity.
It's really interesting. And I guess, does that mean, doing Facebook ads or, more where you can maybe target specific communities? How do you sort of make sure that you are targeting the right communities that are underrepresented?
Yeah, so it's going into those communities and understanding where to be able to get in front of those communities in an effective way. So a few of the places we grew our visibility. One was by advertising through smaller communities. One was called UK Black Tech, who we advertised through. Another one was just a little bit bigger, but Chic and Code, and then the BYP network. And all of these places are there, and they're very visible, and the communities have such deep talent. Yet they're much more diverse than some of the bigger job boards, and so, but it takes a bit of effort to decide to do it, because you can easily rely on the bigger job boards. It's very easy to.
When you do rely on the job boards, you don't necessarily appreciate. You just expect them to sort of create a diverse pool of talent, or to advertise a diverse pool of talent. But
yeah, and it's that assumption I think we all have, which is everyone's on LinkedIn. And everyone uses that job board, and everyone probably uses that job board, but the assumption, probably isn't the reality.
Yeah, that's great point. And what you wish you'd known before, being a VP of people?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was about to give you a very coachy answer, which was, it's better, that it's good that what I didn't know was good and all that kind of thing. But I think what I wish I knew was how powerful the unknown is. And I think, at earlier stages of my career, I would have done more with that. And I think I did made the most of it and Mention Me, of knowing that there's so many things I don't know. And this about this business, about the dynamics, about the culture, about the way things work, about what the future's going to hold. There's no predictability in my mind, all that kind of thing. And I tried to, and I definitely could have done more, but I tried to embrace it as much as possible. And I tried to make it last for as long as possible, and tried to be a person in the room or in the conversation who was not necessarily there to have the answer, but was there to ask more questions, to be able to understand a bigger picture than just the standard. So I think my answer is to I wish I knew how powerful that sort of phase is in a career.
So basically embracing the unknown and being able to absorb is sort of the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah
And you mentioned also scaling, mentioned me, and you wanted to sort of make sure that you were attracting a diverse talent. So what was sort of the impact on culture, or what were some of the things that you were thinking of when you were looking to scale the team and scale culture?
Yeah, it meant the impact was obviously positive, but it just meant the culture grew. I mean, it broadened really visibly and quite organically as well. So, by having a more diverse group of people, you have more diverse thinking, and therefore you have more ideas. It's just, really simple sort of equation. And so we had more suggestions coming through for things like so we do cultural showcases. We had more suggestions for the types of cultural showcases we could do. We had higher levels of participation for internal panel discussions about whether it's pride or mental health and well-being, or International Women's Day was one of the big ones we did this year as well. And so bigger groups of people wanting to be involved meant more events, which meant more impact, which meant that we made more change, and that then impacted things like our own policies and the changes we decided to make to how we go about doing what we do. So the impact was huge, and the knock-on effect was really impressive, bigger than I thought it would be, to be honest.
So I guess the key takeaway is that, when you're scaling the business, you should expect your culture to change. And is that something that, founders should embrace?
Definitely. I think it's beginning, this idea of holding on to culture, I think is beginning to fizzle away a little bit, which is a good thing, because I think holding on to culture is not a bad thing, but it depends on which component of your culture you're looking to hold on to. So then culture is made up of a whole bunch of components. Things like your visible symbols and rituals and things that you do that only you do as a company, and that people associate that with you as a business. Then there's the makeup of your of sort of key people, or whether it's sort of your values, or all these components that come together that sort of define value, and like the DNA, the identity of the business, all those things. And if you're trying to hold on to the way they were, then you're probably not going to reflect the kind of workforce that you want to attract and the kind of talent you want to attract. And you're probably not going to reflect the kind of society you want to contribute to and the kind of society you want to positively impact either. And so, I think holding on to culture can be a way to potentially pause in the wrong way. But thinking about culture as a way to reflect the people in your organization, and as a way to reflect how you want to positively impact society and positively impact your people's lifestyles, will help you to evolve the way you need to.
Yeah, and then it's a great answer. And I guess culture is something which, as a founder, you don't generally think of until it becomes a key point. And even for me, putting down on paper what our values are is something which I don't necessarily think of straight away or on a day-to-day basis, because there's so much doing that, and sometimes you need to take a step back. But I guess culture is something which needs to evolve, because you want to build a diverse workforce, and you can only do that if you have a diverse team to start with.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
great. And in terms of values and setting them, is the approach for the leadership of founders to define them, or would you sort of advocate more for a collaborative approach? And how do you sort of find a balance between what the employees might want and what the leadership?
I think there's always going to be a healthy level of difference in the thinking between certain groups and people within the business, and that's okay. And I think that shows that there's always appetite for change and evolution. I think the values should start as a group exercise, because I think they should reflect the people who are in the organization and what it is you're striving to achieve as a group of people. So the values end up bringing together who you are as a group and as a team. And you will feel that those values reflect, how you work, how you want to be seen, and your identity as a business, and what you stand for. But I think an important factor is for everybody to be aware that they're not set in stone forever, and these are the values that reflect who we are, where we are, and what we need to do today. And in 6 months' time, we probably need to change them. And so not even we'll change them if they need to change in the future. It's in 6 months' time, we probably will need to. So that door's wide open to change. So that helps people to get on board with today. it helps everyone to think about the fact that these things should move and they're living, and they're not there to be set in stone and just constantly thought of as something we have to abide to. It should be more of a reflection of what we're all striving for. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. Yeah,
you give me lots of ideas. But on the back of that, I know you mentioned part of the team is in Boston, and then the rest in London. So how do they have both teams have the same values, or how do you sort of bring that all together?
Yeah, so we're at a size, and mention me, where our values, and in fact, we're looking to make a change to one of our values at the moment, and that's to reflect the environment we're working in at the moment, and the environment that sort of faces us as a SaaS business. The international side of things is coming into place. So, our Boston office has been open for a few months, and we're thinking of and working on ways to ensure that there's a cultural transfer, and that feeling of being in a Mention Me office and being around Mention Me people. We call ourselves Mentioneers. Being around Mentioneers is felt whether you're in Boston or in London. And that takes a bit of time, and the values aren't the only way for that to happen. But the input of values from the Boston team is going to be really important. And we haven't done that bit yet, but that's going to be really important, so that it's not just now that you're on board, here are the values, go and live by them. Are these the values as a US team? Are they going to help you in what you need to achieve? Are they going to help you become the team that you need to be? And if they're not, let's talk about it and work on them, because they're not set in stone. And if they are, great, let's then work out the US way of activating them. So it probably won't be the same way we activate them in London.
Yeah, I went to the SaaStr conference a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't realize how many US companies were there. But coming out of that, I felt, yes, we need more of the US, or more of the American way of doing SaaS, or in London, or Eastern London tech scene.
Yeah.
So I'm very jealous that you're already in the US.
We can share. It's fine.
Yeah. Great. And piece of advice would you sort of give to a prospective founder or people leader?
I think it probably relates to my what I wish I knew answer, which is sort of lean into that curiosity, lean into the unknown, and not just to be curious, but even sometimes play up to it. So I think there's certain situations where all of us feel that we need to have the answer because of the position that we're in, or because of our title, because of who we're surrounded by, and fighting that urge and not having an answer, but instead asking a question and creating curiosity in a group can be so powerful for the discussion and bringing people on board and sharing ideas, that the answer ends up being even richer than what you would have initially offered. So I think being able to learn from a group, even if you have the answer, is probably the piece of advice I'd give.
It's very big advice, and something that I don't do enough of.
Okay. me either. It's always very advised, but I don't do it enough either.
Yeah. Well, I think, at the time, I don't know the answer, and but sometimes I'll just, stay quiet and think when actually I should engage and
yeah. Okay.
Or
that's the time to ask a question.
Yeah. And I guess closing question for you as a guest of the Tech Story podcast: what's your favorite tech product?
Yeah, I thought about this one, and I'm quite basic with my tech, and I realized that it was a really complementary piece of tech that I rely on really heavily, but it has such a big impact on me. And I'm also an absolute sucker for headphones. Okay. So for me, the piece of tech is pieces of tech are my headphones. So I've got a set of earbuds that for when I'm on the move and I'm commuting, I'm exercising, walking, whatever it is, and then a pair of over-ear headphones that I love for when I'm focused and coming out the outside world, and they really help me to focus. And without them, I really struggle to focus. So for me, those two sets of headphones really help to define the state of work I'm in, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I love my AirPods. Well, and they survived the washing machine.
Oh, did they?
But the quality of the audio didn't, or shit. But so
I mean, that's impressive. They are pretty robust. They can take a bit of a beating. So yeah, nice.
Well, thanks very much for being on the show, and
thanks for having me. Yeah, great. Thanks, Charles.
Yeah.